Flight boss, bitch, you know, for sure. Now, this is a quick video right here on who or what created the primordial waters. Now, for some reason, none of your religious texts teach this or anything of that nature. But I'm going to tell you who created the primordial waters right now. Now, what or who created the primordial waters? Now, the primordial waters. Now, the primordials, what you look at as space, or what they want to call dark matter, or what they want to call things of that nature, this is the primordial waters. This is the vibration. And it's the color spectrum. But based upon how small or big you are, based upon the cosmos or your reality that you are in, is your ability, or how close something is to you, is going to be your ability to decipher what color spectrum is being played out. So since you are on a planet, based upon all the other lights and influences you are around, you're going to be able to see the color spectrum. Now, when the different color spectrums, when you see the closest planets to you, you're going to be able to see what color spectrum they carry. Now, the further it leaves, the further you don't understand. But the more you still see we're in this darkness, but it's really not darkness. It's just all the color spectrums smeared together based upon your realm of reality, or your inability to be able to point out the particle from the wave from a large perspective of it. Now, the rainbow waters was created by our spirits, right? Now, your spirit is in a world of its own that's unseen, but you're always in that world. Now, the world of imagination and illusion and creation and what can be seen, and the realm of energy is the realm of creation. That's the energy. The spirit was birthed by God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, and based upon what Pacific God or world, that's going to let you know what spirit group what you were birthed from. And you're going to play that out based upon your ideas and concepts and what you agree with from a mythical side or a spiritual side when you're playing out things on earth. Now, for the most part, like when we talk about atheists and things of that nature, even though this is another video, we can say that physically they're playing out lostness, right? Because their spirits is lost. So anything that they disagree with and spend their time and life on trying to disagree with it, that's their actual spiritual group also. They're just being negligent. You know what I'm saying? They're just being opposing with their spirit group. You know what I'm saying? So for when you get a highly religious, when you get a atheist who constantly want to argue with religious people, that atheist that's their spiritual group is with that religious person. They're just being the polar opposite of it, but they're really part of the same spirit group. You see what I'm saying? Now, in the beginning, the thoughts and the ideas of this overall being became the first beings, which were spiritual beings. And the many different thoughts became many different ideas and aka many different spirits. Now, in the frequency realm, these are spirits. Now, these spirits lived on lives of their own, end up having their own smaller version of where they just came from, because they was offsprings. So this is why you can never truly be God. You can just be a part of God. So we are not all God. We just all are offsprings or a piece of God, different shapes and forms. But depending on the density and how many shapes and forms and how much numbers is added in letters and sigils, is letting us know how far down and separate that we are as far as spirits following other spirits into other bodies and gases and sounds and lights to experience different shit. But for the most part, before we get there, now these first ideas and thoughts, whatever like that, right, had kids. There was like initially like four thoughts, or I'm not even gonna get into numbers like that because numbers is really man-made. So you know, there was ideas from this overall being, right? Well, parameter, this expansion contraction type of energy which came about out of it. That's why you always hear something ascending or descending or something like that, like when they say like a ocean water, then once it risen back, the seashells or the life that was there, this is where they talk about the primordial beings came from, and the first earth primordial beings. And this is why all mythology religion stories start with earth fucking Uranus, and then them having Saturn, and then there's a bunch of incest going on and shit like that. Listen, y'all, men been lost. Women have been lost. And this is all y'all got to go to even build off y'all spirit. And it's fucked up that it's a gift and a curse, because it make me feel like maybe I'm wrong, but then it make me feel like no, I'm right, because I'm the only person only person. Like, but that's another video. Now, for the most part, we want to talk about now this overall. Now, these spirits, right? These ideas, these thoughts were kind of together. You know how you have a transition of ideas? One idea kind of correlate with the next one. So that's how you expand your mind from if you're just realizing certain things. So, but as in time, in this realm, thoughts end up taking their own life. Same way you got a thought and it end up becoming its own life. You see what I'm saying? You end up experiencing certain things. For an example, you ever been driving and you ever wish you wanted this kind of car, then you just start seeing them cars all the time. Them cars been passing, you just wasn't paying attention to it. So you see what I'm saying? It's like your thought took a life of its own. Now, for the most part, in this realm, as far as the frequency realm, was created the vibrational realm, which we're gonna get into, was signs of direction, line of events, timeline. Now, these ideas took lives of their own, so they developed being conscious. You know what I'm saying? And within their idea is the life of them. So it's that was the world that they experienced. Now, based upon them being together, they end up having their own perception of the world that they was traveling in, based upon that idealistic realm of God, right? So they started becoming individuals. So this is where you get the vibration realm. This is where you get soul, the soul terminology from. A spirit becoming an individual spirit is a soul. A spirit that's able to have its own interpretation of the space that they are in. Now, since their space was all together, that's like if you being bunched up too much. You're like, man, I need some space. Get off me or whatever like that. Same kind of idea, but just think about it as in thought. Now, this thought may lead down this direction. This thought may lead down to this direction after a while. No matter, just because they came and had the same goal, to get to that goal may be in different directions. So that's, I'm trying to get you to understand. So as far as now, they started having relationships with each other and birthing other spirits and things of that nature. Now, based upon this traveling and this relating to the space that they're in, and becoming individual spirits, you know, you're going to have one that's on this side, breaks off into a piece of this side. One is on a piece of this side. Let's look at it like it's just idea right now, though, right? One looking at things from this side, this side. So you get different perspective and different individual spirits now. Now the wave is becoming particleized, right? Now within each, they start relating to each other based upon this separation. So within this relating, that's where you get angels from. Angels. So angels is beneath spirits, but we're going to get to that. But angels get inhabited by spirits. Spirits, all spirits is born. You was born as a spirit first. But let's based upon your outlook, that's the spirit you've been following for ages. In many different shapes and forms, following that spirit in many different. But let's get to the shit now. As far as the relativeness now, cause you're in this space next to this. Now y'all are perceiving the spaces different. So the direction y'all going, right? When y'all leave that space, the space that y'all left going into another space is spinning, creates a spiral. But the frequency vibration of that spiral is still carrying the energy of that space. So anytime a spirit coming back across that space, they end up frequentizing and resonating with it, or being remembered on what was taking place when we was relating, when we was in that space. Now certain spirits like certain spaces more than other spaces, so they may rotate and migrate and try to take control over that space, and take authority over certain spaces. So you see what I'm saying? So say it took us both to create that space. Now say it took us both to create this business, but I might like this business more than you. So I do something and hire a bunch of other people to get you fired so you're not needed no more. Then I took over the business. It's like that same kind of concept. So I create all kind of ways to make myself fixated in that business so I can strive, and now you can't even do nothing to penetrate or make yourself a part of that business. And let's call the business the space. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a dog eat, it's like it'll become a war if you want that land, if you want that space, if you want my business, whatever business you can create to oppose mine is going to become a war. So this is where the war in the sky came from also. And this is why all y'all religion texts start with war, because that's what the shapes and forms and the spirits that took these shapes and forms kept playing out. But that's what I'm talking about before we even get to the physical realm right now. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about before, when this shit get created. Now, as far as the now the space, that's like I said, these are spaces being created. So if you are rotating in that space because you like that space more than the space I am, and depending on the things that you're willing to do to stay in that space, you develop a reputation, right? Now the space that we're talking about is the rainbow waters that got created out of our us wanting to be separate or become individual spirits, right? And then us going our separate ways is what created space, and what created the frequency vibration, which is the energy that's being felt and migrating and vibrating in that space, is how we was relating to each other each time we cross paths in these certain spaces. You know what I'm saying? So we may cross that same path, that same space in a different way. You know what I'm saying? That add to that space. Now space, like I was telling y'all, it's always space within space, no matter what dimension you are in. The smaller you are, you just see it as all space. But every time that's why you may be in your space, but when you go somewhere else or go in someone else's house, you feel different. You in another space. You see what I'm saying? That you didn't originate from. So you're not used to that space. But for the most part, now, or if you like that space, you'll do whatever you try to do to stay in that space. So it could be a relationship space, a business space, how I just explained it. But that's how space, primordial waters, got created. Now, it's shapeless and formless. So it's like fluidy like. Well, how y'all perceive fluid, but vibrations came from there. So when we was traveling with each other, right, the spaces and it was migrating in a certain way is just space. And the more we go across that, the more it's like the more space added, the more heavy, the more it's perceived that in this realm that as spirits it just look like expansion and contraction. But what's happening is more space being developed and more things within the space being developed. And now we're starting to get the perception of high, low, lords, authority. You know what I'm saying? Higher demand, higher thought, lower thought. You know what I'm saying? So this is where you start to get lower thought, mean more experiences, more patterns, more densities, more frequencies, and then that's going to create more time, more because it's more experience. You know what I'm saying? So more shapes and forms can develop out of the shapeless and formless. So things may appear to seem certain ways because the shapes and forms is like light, sound, gas, and the more light, sound, and gas is added into one space and location, it can take the shape and form of the angle of how it was related to in the spirit realm. So for an example, in the spirit realm, say we cross paths like this a couple times. Now, what migrated in that space there now is in a certain way. Now, the more and more we add, the more and more the space happens. Now, lights and sounds, the heavier it get, it's going to start appearing as angles. So the lights and sounds and angles and the shapes and forms that get made out of that water, right, end up becoming more and more dense into densities and realms of realities, and is able to become physical. And the physical shape and form that it take is the way the shapeless formless realm, the rainbow waters, was rotating in based upon how we was passing, right? And then once it get to the energy realm, because we got frequency, vibration, now this the energy, which is the creation. Once we see what's created out of that rainbow waters, it's going to be shit that seem heavy or light, but it still take the shape and form of the rotation of how the spirits was rotating. So now the physical shapes and forms is going to be moving in the patterns of how the spirits was moving. And then the spirits that like that space and want to experience that realm of reality can utilize those creations, those bodies, to experience that rotation and stay there forever. And then this is where spirits don't want to die, don't want to transform from that shape, because it's a sense of having to leave that space. So they create more pieces to themselves based upon, aka more densities, more weight, to put them more down into that space so they don't have to leave that space. And this is where you get lords from, because they are lower in frequency. They are lower on the space than the spirits that didn't want to take those lesser bodies, that didn't really care about being in a Pacific space. And how y'all looking at it now, that's you being in a Pacific emotions and feelings. You in a Pacific space in your life, in an emotional space in your life. So in the spirit realm, the higher you go in density, these things are doing that literally. You see what I'm saying? Like literally. So when you say we are family, or we in rotation down here, or we're rotating, and you go out and do what you got to do, but you come back and bring that down. When we look at the planets, the sun, they're doing that literally. You see what I'm saying? So in their level of life, you can't understand that. You can only understand perceptions of it from a smaller point of view. So you're in a smaller rotation. You're in a smaller relative. Things that's relative to you. Things that's irrelevant is not relative to you. Same way a person who's staying in another country, or a person who's not part of your family, or a person who's not your friend. You see what I'm saying? Patterns, and it's deep, but it really ain't. But I'm just trying to get y'all to understand, that's how the Primordial Waters was created. So as spirits becoming individual spirits, which is souls, and us interacting in certain ways, and us interacting is like sense of direction, us traveling in the astral realm, but it's causing space between us because of how you feel about this travel, and how I feel about it causes us to go in separate directions, whether it's a trine, sextile, whatever opposition type of direction, right? It still causes space because now we're separate, because you are individual and I'm an individual, and depending on how much we could bounce back off each other, we could become a source together, or a person could become their own source. But the more you become an individual, the more separate you are, but the more you make yourself appliant, the more of a follower you are. This is why it's in a physical body, you need a soul to balance between the two, because you don't want to be a soulless, spiritless person in a physical body, or you don't want to be a person who got too much soul and too much to the point you become your own god. See, it doesn't work that way. So this is why the soul is here to vibrate. It came second, is in the middle, because as a spirit you utilize the space that you are in, which is you become an individual. That's a soul. So but the better you know how to travel and not get stuck and attached to certain spaces, aka certain feelings, the better you know how to bounce off and become a source. So your soul, your spiritual nature is vibrating high. So you can take any vessel that you take that's created out of the Primordial Waters that we created as spirits, any shape and form, light, gas, bacteria, or body that you take is going to be able to express your source the best way it can. So the bigger the source you is, you know how to develop a better brain, or develop another body out of these Primordial Waters to experience that Pacific space, a shape and form of lights and influences in that Primordial Waters that got created out of it. I call it rainbow waters. I don't like to call it Primordial Waters, because once you start to particleize the wave, you start to separatize the coffee. You start to separatize all the colors, the colors together, because all the colors together make black. The absent of black, the absent of all colors make white. So once you get absent of all colors, you're getting to the frequency realm. You know what I'm saying? Once we add all the colors together, all our feelings and emotions, we created the space. This is what space, how you see it, is just space is black because it's where you at as a small being. But I'm trying to get you to understand you from the spiritual being. Now you understand everything I'm saying in spiral natures. You understand all that as your spirit. It's just if you're lost in the physical, that's the only reason you may be lost a little bit and don't understand what I'm saying. But you may be lost in the physical, but you may be the person whose spirit may be like, man, you need to listen to this person, so your physical may show it in a way of trying to hate on me or something like that, or trying to find the negative attributes about why I'm not explaining what I'm explaining, or things of that nature, right? But if your spirit forcing you to do that, that's just because your spirit is trying to make you be consciously aware of what's actually, and making you, and forcing your senses to be consciously aware with all those brains, those eyeballs, your senses, is forcing you to physically put it in your DNA. So because spirits be thirsty at times, be hungry as hell. People be having skinny ass spirits. They be consciously aware of a bunch of shit that their spirit can't even feed off of. This is why they say food for thought. A lot of y'all motherfucking spirits be skinny as hell, get ready to die. So it'll force y'all to listen to somebody, even if it had to come and force your and psych your physical body, your light body into the illusion of hate. It'll force you to do that, just as long as it can eat. Like, for real, this shit be deep. Flight boss, bitch. Goddamn air.